You are listening to the Jboy Show, your number one source from the SEC.
My goal was to run through his soul and grab his heart when I run through his soul.
Kurt, Nate, Coach Staff, those are memories.
I think we've established ourselves as, I think, the premier conference in college football.
Now, the SEC is better at the top. It's better in the middle.
The Southeastern Conference remains the premier conference.
Takes the snap. Looking for the receiver. He's got Lutz Kirkland. Touchdown, Auburn!
When you think about it, it's always been the SEC and everybody else trying to catch it.
I think this is probably the best league from a competitive venue standpoint.
They have the most capable teams. You just look at those programs, the way they recruit, how they invest.
Snap to Burrow. 3 steps. Fires. Back corner of the end zone. Over the shoulder catch. Did he hold on? He did. Justin Jefferson. Touchdown, Tiger.
And now, your host, Jboy.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for hopping in again on another edition of the number one ranked sporting news podcast on Apple in the country. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple or Spotify, listen, we don't discriminate. Like I said, you could be listening to a starburst with a gyroscope on the end of it. As long as you're tuning in, we really appreciate it. Got another amazing guest today, a guy that was a fantastic quarterback in the SEC, won a lot of games, and really was there as the tide started to turn. No pun intended. Actually, I'm going to say pun intended. But before we get there, I want to give a shout out to our friends at betonline.ag. Again, the online casino is always open. We got March Madness coming on, which is one of the most bet things in the world. My favorite postseason sporting event of all time. And we finally get it again this year. So whether you like parlays, props, teasers, pleasers, whatever, check them out at betonline.ag and tell them your boy Jboy sent you. All right. Well, with no further ado, I'm going to bring in a guy that I love to watch him play, a guy that really did it the right way. And that's former Alabama standout quarterback John Parker Wilson, also played in the NFL as well. JPW, what's up, man?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Man, we're doing fantastic. Anytime I can get an SEC QB in here, I always say, give me SEC QBs, SEC O-line, and SEC D-line. Those are the guys I want in here. No offense to the skill guys. They get all the glory. You know, the quarterback gets the glory and the blame most of the time, unless, you know, you throw a shoe at the end of the game or something. No, you know, that's kind of how it goes. But, John Parker, I want to start because obviously you started as a sophomore. You were a guy that played in 12 games as a sophomore, and going from a freshman, seeing how it works, coming in, getting some PT, even in the Iron Bowl and stuff like that, going into your sophomore year, how prepared did you feel to really take on the responsibility of being that quarterback at the University of Alabama, which is no small thing, and there's a little bit of pressure that comes with that?
Just a little bit, especially, you know, me growing up here. I grew up in Alabama, so I was an Alabama fan from birth. My mom actually was a cheerleader when she was at school there, so Alabama ran deep. Alabama ran deep for me, and there was a little bit of pressure, but man, I felt like I was really prepared going into, you know, after my redshirt year. So I was behind Brody Crowell for 2 years, which I think was huge because Brody obviously was drafted. I think he was in the 3rd round from the Kansas City Chiefs, but man, he just did it the right way when he was there at Alabama. We had Mike Shula also as our head coach who recruited me, who spent a lot of time in the NFL, especially on the offensive side. Offensive coordinator, quarterback coach when he was in the NFL. So him coming in there, understanding that he also played at Alabama, understanding that everything that goes along with that, and you know, not just playing football, but all the off the field stuff, media interviews, everything. There was a lot going on. So I think between Mike Shula, our offensive coordinator, Dave Rader, and Brody, when I got a chance to play, I was ready to go. I really was. And it was just all those guys working together.
Yeah, and it really is a group effort, and it goes on behind the scenes, and not every situation is perfect. But like you said, there were a ton of parallels. There probably wasn't a question you could ask him that he didn't have an answer for in your position. And I want to get deeper into your college career, but I want to talk about the jump from high school to college. And I always talk about this with offensive linemen and the physicality and understanding that just because you're big doesn't mean you're good. It's all about leverage and understanding how to use your body, not just how you look. But from a mental standpoint, as a quarterback. And again, you played at Hoover. Y'all weren't just running, 3 routes. It wasn't super simple, but compared to college in the SEC, it's like going from addition to algebra 3. Can you just walk people through the process of, okay, I'm going to be overwhelmed maybe a little bit at first, even if they try and spoon feed me, but then you pick it up. It's almost like learning a language.
No, you're exactly right, because we came from a big high school and we ran a pretty complex offense in high school. We actually ran a lot of the plays that you see Mike Leach running now, kind of came from Kentucky, and now he's at Mississippi State. So we ran a pretty good offense. We were spread out. We were the shotgun a ton. But, man, that jump from high school to coming to college was just like you have no idea what you didn't know. I thought I was like smart and could read defenses and know what was going on, but not even close. Because, if we had a hot route or somebody blitzing in high school, you just kind of figured it out. There would be some hot routes, but it's just like, hey, just get rid of the ball quick if they're coming. If you see more guys blitzing, just throw it quick. So, man, just understanding defenses and blitzes, and I think pass protection was the biggest jump. I mean, that because if you don't have pass protection when you get to SEC football, I mean, you're likely to die out there. You're going to get eaten alive by some guys. So it was going from not only the pass protection, but this was still this was 15 years ago, back when I first started, when you remember clips of John Gruden when he'd read these plays and they'd be like 5 minutes long.
That's right.
You're 227 Z deep 7 F flat, all these, like you're telling like the water boy what to do on these plays. So just learning how to like talk the language, like you said, and figuring out how to communicate back in the huddle. We huddled up back then. It was a lot to figure out. And I think not having to start as a freshman was a pretty big benefit because you could kind of learn along the way.
Without a doubt. That's why I say a redshirt year is great for anybody. I don't care what position you play, obviously, unless you're just a freak of nature or they have nobody at that spot. But you said a word, John Parker. You said huddle? A huddle? What? I can't remember the last time I've seen somebody last time I saw a huddle, I was eating at Huddle House. How crazy, not crazy, but just the innovativeness of offenses now. And a lot of it, I think, is for protection. I've had Cole Kubick on here. We've talked about it, being able to check with me on the sideline, get the play. Okay, they're reading the defense almost for me a little bit. Not that guys don't make checks in college and stuff like that, but then you're 5 yards back and it's a much shorter drop. You can get the ball out quicker. It's a lot more quick game. How much change in offense have you seen? It all comes down to blocking and tackling it up front to me. You talked about being able to protect the passer. But when you watch now and you watch not just some offenses that are spreading it out and doing this and going at warp speed, but most of them are doing it. Not jealous isn't the word, but you kind of like, man, that's kind of cool a little bit.
So cool. Yeah, jealous is a great word. I think I saw when Alabama was playing this year in the Rose Bowl, Notre Dame huddled, and I was like shocked.
Yeah, I know.
First team I saw all year.
Trick play.
Like a muddle huddle. They got to be running to the line of scrimmage to go quick. But I love the evolution, and it's even going now to pros on. Yeah. Hey, let's just figure out ways to make these guys play quick, not have to think so much, and just go play fast and react, right? So thinking is not good when you're on the football field. We just want to go out there and react, especially for these college kids where you got to go to class. You got to make your grades. You got to pass your classes. In the NFL, it's a little easier because you're there literally all day long, working through ball and talking shop and figuring out. But in college, man, there's only so many hours in the day. So now what we're doing in the game is, the check with me, look to the sidelines. Those offense coordinators make a lot of money now. I mean, let them call the play. Let them put us in the best play, the best protection, the best whatever, so we can go play fast. And it's gone from these long play calls to just a couple words. And then you could do so many more things off that. So I am jealous. I wish we had that back in the day.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your honesty. And I think a lot of quarterbacks are, and I think it's just going to continue to move because I really feel, John Parker, that it's just another way outside of motioning to try and get the defense in the look that you want, because there's only so many things when they can't sub guys. There's no package coming in if you can't sub guys. So they only know a certain amount of things, and it's trying to get guys to base. Me and Hugh Freeze, I thought, had a great conversation on it, and I think you'll agree with a lot of it. But I want to get back to you, John Parker, because you had a lot of success at Bama. Y'all were winning games, but then your senior year, I want to ask you before we get into the season, because again, you guys had a heck of a year, 12-2, did a lot of big things, but you were there really when the era of Nick Saban started. And I don't want to take anything away from Coach Shula, who is obviously a brilliant football mind. It's an unbelievably tough thing and a tough job at places like Alabama. But can you give me kind of the aha moment from John Parker Wilson when you realize, like, hey, this Saban guy is maybe a wizard?
He's the real deal, right? And yeah, and Coach Shula, he did so much for the program, and coming in a time where people forget too that we were on probation. I mean, we were limited scholarships. I think in my class there was like 9 or 10 guys. I think on senior day when we graduated, there was 9 guys out there, which was a tough situation to be in when he came in and got a lot of guys. I think when we were there that really loved Alabama football, because we knew we were coming in there. We couldn't go to a bowl game. And there was going to be some growing pains, so he was able to get a lot of good guys in there that just loved the program and wanted to be a part of it. But then when Saban got there, he had been in college, had done it before, had been super successful at LSU, and now he's here. It's like, okay, we're going to kind of try to reinvent everything, and he was able to do that. I mean, from day one, he came in and changed basically everything we did, where it was all scheduled and task oriented. And I think, we in 2007, so his first year there, we were close. We were close in a lot of games. We lost to Georgia in overtime. We lost to Auburn right at the end of the game. LSU, we had a fumble right at the end of the game by the quarterback he was playing there. We should have won that game, but we were getting beat by like 2, 3, 4 points.
Yeah.
There was
you guys are in the fight. Yeah, you're in the fight.
But we just didn't know how to win yet, right? We didn't know how to close the door. And I remember the discrepancy in the fourth quarter points that we were, that we scored versus what we gave out. It was out of control. So then I don't think it was until 2008 when we started off in, kind of one of the first kickoff games against Clemson where we put it to them and we beat them. We beat them bad. They were one of the, top ranked colleges or teams in college. And here we are. We probably weren't even ranked at the time, but we went out there and just laid it to them. We had a lot of young guys, a lot of true freshmen out there playing. And it was like, hey, we got a chance to be something special this year.
Oh, without a doubt. And you talk about true freshmen, having Julio Jones out there, Mark Ingram, because again, Shula did not recruit bad, but again, you're on probation. You're fighting with hands tied behind your back, especially in the SEC. Like, that's just the truth. Regardless of what you think, it is almost impossible to be able to fight against other full rosters. And with recruits, a lot of top recruits don't want to go to a place they may be on probation and stuff like that. So much goes into it. But, John Parker, when you saw Julio Jones come in, and look, you're a hell of a player. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just Mark, but all you guys together. When you saw Julio Jones commit to Alabama and go out and run that first route, I'm sure it's probably like, hey, guys, it's a good job out here. Pretty excited about the season.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Julio was like the first big time recruit that we had. He was a 5-star. I think he was the number 1 receiver in the country. And he came to Alabama, and literally from the first day he was out there, some guys just look different. Julio's built like a Greek god. He's shredded, and he was that way when he was 18 as a true freshman. He comes in, and the first day we're going out there, and he didn't know what a route or anything is or what we call it. It's like, hey, Julio, just go get open. And he did it. And he did it no matter what. I mean, Jim McElwain was our offensive coordinator that my senior year. And it was our game plan at the beginning of the week was pretty simple. It's how are we going to find ways to get Julio the ball? And that's not BS. That's like,
I believe
he's our guy. We're going to throw it to him 100 times this year. And, Julio is such a special player. I think he's on track to be a Hall of Famer right now in the NFL. But man, he and I actually got to play with him in Atlanta when he was drafted as a rookie. I was still there, and he has not changed from that first day when he came to Alabama to when I played with him in Atlanta. And I think what separates him from everybody is just his work ethic. He works harder than anybody. Here he is, the greatest recruit Alabama's ever had. He's first round draft pick, but he literally raised everybody in the entire program by the way it worked, and he never changed.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it. And those guys, it's amazing. It seems to be those guys that have those long NFL careers that are that talented. I mean, again, just the physical gifts on this guy, but that'll only take you so far over a certain amount of years. That consistency, those are the guys that end up getting in that hall. Those are the guys that you look back and say, well, this is the blueprint for how to do it, especially when you have those gifts athletically. But I got to ask you, John Parker, so the senior year, you guys are rolling. Give me one memory from that, whether it's a big play, maybe a funny moment on the field. I always tell everybody football in some spots is actually funny on the field, especially in the NFL. Everybody's shocked when they hear the mic'd up and they can't believe guys are joking with each other or making fun of each other after a play or something. Can you give me a story from that season that, not just Alabama fans, but SEC and football and college football fans in general will enjoy?
Yeah, it is. Football's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's pretty fun. And I know everybody wants us to be serious all the time. I think the biggest memory that I have from that season would be probably the Georgia blackout game when we went to Athens, and they had a great team, but it was still early in the season. We beat Clemson, but we still hadn't done anything. So here we're going to go on the road. And for us, I think that was kind of the turning point for us, is when we could go compete with some big teams. And here we are still. It's hard to even think about Alabama not being ranked in the top 3, much less in the top 25. So for us, it was kind of uncharted territory, and that was just so fun to be able to experience with a lot of young guys, and then just a few seniors that we did have that was like, hey, it's so much more fun when you win too. Like it's not even close. Going 6-6, and we spent 2 years back to back in the Independence Bowl. My sophomore and junior year, we were in the same bowl game twice. So it was like, hey, we got a chance to do something special, and without a doubt was the most fun we had that year, because then after that we just started rolling, and now they haven't looked back.
Yeah, well, momentum's a real thing. It really is a real thing. Confidence is a real thing. Swag is a real thing. And speaking of real things, real quick, if you want shoes that you actually ordered and you want a good price and you want to get them quick, go over to ebay.com/sneakers. All right. They've got an authenticity team that's waiting. They're guaranteeing you're going to get what you want, whether it's the tag, the box, the logo, the threads, the tongue, the sole, the shoe. It's going to be exactly what you ordered. There is no funny business. Trust me. All right. I've ordered multiple times. They do an unbelievable job. So head over to ebay.com/sneakers today and tell them Jboy sent you. But John Parker, as we're kind of getting to the second half per se of the interview, I thought you were always an unbelievable second half player as well. I want to talk about something that doesn't get talked about, I think, enough. And that's the toughness of these guys at quarterbacks. And look, not every one of them's tough. There's some guys that are soft out there and it typically gets exposed. But one thing I remember about you is, and this sends a message to the team, when you got guys like Julio, like we mentioned, and Mark Ingram and all those guys, and you're staying in there and taking hits and delivering the ball. I mean, I watched you get knocked around all the time, but you get right back up, put that mouthpiece in, you get the ball where it needs to go. And just talk about the message, and especially now that you're done, looking back and you go in the film and you say, man, that's my quarterback stood in there and took that hit for me to get me the ball. And because that's your way of being tough.
No doubt. Yeah. And I love it. And I appreciate you saying that, because people will come up to me now and be like, hey man, we don't remember a lot about that season, but you got blasted a lot and you just kept getting up and you were tough. And I think that's huge, because as a quarterback, right, we get a lot of privileges when we're in the football team. Like, workouts aren't the same. You don't get hit during practice. You don't get hit during the games. So it's almost a point. It was a point to me to prove to everybody that, hey, we're in this together. And anytime I ever got hit, I mean, I tried as fast as I could to hop up, not lay on the deck, because I didn't want anybody on the other sideline to see me laying there. But I also didn't want, an offensive lineman having to come pick me up or whatever. Like, if I got hit, if you missed a block, no big deal. Let's get on the next time. Yeah. One of the things that we can control, right? There's not a lot of things playing football that I can control or we can control, but you can be tough and you could get up and you could keep playing. And even though it hurt like a I mean, you just got to get up. You got to keep getting up. And there wasn't, there was a few times I can remember laying on the ground and being like, man, what are we doing? What is going on? Why am I playing this? But it's part of it. But playing quarterback, you got to be able to give it up. You are always the nail. You never get to be the hammer. You're never the hammer, but that's just part of it. I guess we can take it. We could take it 12, 14 weekends out of the year of just getting hit. Now you're going to be sore as hell for probably till about Wednesday or Thursday, but I loved it. That was great. I mean, going and trying to lower your shoulder and hit people. I didn't love doing that, but you can hop up from the deck.
Without a doubt. And again, man, I mean, you're actually getting me kind of fired up over here. And for all you young quarterbacks out there listening that, think that's not part of it, is a part of it. And this is a guy that did it, a guy that lived it, a guy that had success, that understands both levels, college and the NFL. But John Parker, I always ask when I get quarterbacks on here, because you make a ton of throws, ton of good throws. A couple of throws, I always laugh because, I had Danny Werfel on here and had Hudson Mason, which we're dropping soon. And, Hudson was talking about the first throw he ever had was the touchdown pass, and he made the wrong read. And the only person that knew that was him and the coach, and everybody else was like, this guy's a genius at quarterback. He's the next thing, which that actually happens, in my opinion, more than what people think. But what is one throw that you look back on and you're like, yeah, I sauced that one up?
Okay, it was probably in the we're playing LSU down in Baton Rouge, and we got to win. We've got to win the game to go to the SEC championship. I mean, we hadn't been there in forever, so it's overtime, and we get the ball. Rashad Johnson picks it off. LSU gets the ball first. I forget who the quarterback was. Throws an interception. So here we get the ball. We're on the 25-yard line. In college, you're already in field goal range. I mean, you just run a couple of plays, kick a field goal, and let's go. But I think we had missed a field goal or got one blocked right before regulation. So Coach Saban was like, hey, man, let's throw it to Julio. Let's get it done and throw it to the big guy. Let's get it in the end zone. So first play, he runs a sluggo, slant and go. He's one-on-one with a defensive back. And it was, usually Julio wins over top. But if not, let's throw a back shoulder to him. Let him use that huge body that he's got. Yeah. And that was it. It was down on their sideline, able to throw the back shoulder. We got it like to the 1-yard line. I snuck it in the next play. But that was like, that, I mean, that's as good as it gets. Man-to-man coverage, our guy versus your best guy. You got to fit it in there to win the game, and that was it.
Man, that's again, I remember that play, and you're right. It's knowing your receivers too, and that's the chemistry that you guys built up, that rapport that you built up. And I always think it's beautiful when it comes down to that moment and that play gets made. And, sometimes it'll be fluke, but the times when it's something you worked on and you're like, hey, if this is no, but like you said, we're going to run sluggo, which audience, that's a new term, sluggo, slant and go. Remember that for you football aficionados out there. But then you put it where you're supposed to, and he adjusts like he's supposed to and makes the play. I think it's beautiful. But John Parker, last question I want to ask you, and I couldn't let you out of here without talking about the Iron Bowl. And to me, and I always say it's the greatest rivalry in any sport. I don't care what anybody says. I'll die on that hill forever. But I want to talk, you look at some of these other rivalry games and you see guys fighting. You see a bunch of crazy stuff before the game. You see a bunch of crazy stuff after the game. Can you talk about the respect level that the players have between each other in that Auburn-Alabama game? Because number one, you guys know each other growing up, most of you. You played against each other or heard about each other. But just what playing in that game meant to you as a kid that grew up, that went to Hoover, that watched it, and just the respect level between the players on the field.
Yeah, look, I think you're one of the first people I've heard talk about that because, it's a fierce rivalry in the state, and there's a lot of hatred going on between the two teams. But on the players, you're right. We grew up knowing each other, playing them in high school, playing them in the state championships or whatever. We see them all the time. And I think most time players, you do have respect for each other because it's hard. Man, it's hard to get to class and get workouts and off season and spring training and everything else. And I think there always was that respect between the players because you do, man. Down here in Alabama, when it's Iron Bowl week, I mean, even all year long, you're wearing your jersey to school. I can remember our cafeteria was Alabama one side in elementary school and the other side was Auburn for the Iron Bowl week. And that's how serious it is. And that was true all the time. I mean, 365 days a year, but you're right. It is an amazing rivalry with the players and the history. And I think too, growing up here, you always see the highlights of the big games of what happened. You hear the radio calls of going back just decades and decades. So it's like, man, just to be part of it is pretty damn cool when you look back and think on it. And to me, though, that Auburn game is so special because we were coming off the Fear the Thumb, Tommy Tuberville, Auburn beat us. We hadn't won in a long time. So our senior year, there was a week after that LSU game. So we were already going to the SEC championship. If we won the SEC, we were probably going to the national championship. I think we were the first team in the country, but man, like never got really nervous for games, but it was like this Auburn game. You got to win. You can't leave Alabama without beating Auburn.
It's the last one. It's it.
It's it. You get the last chance. So luckily we got it done. And it was just, you're right. The respect is unbelievable. And it's unbelievable because even Alabama could be terrible. Auburn could be terrible. Other team could be great. And it's going to come down to the wire. More times than not, that's a tight game and just crazy, crazy things happen. And it's just, it's awesome.
John, I really appreciate you sharing that because it's the truth. It really is the truth. And I don't think people talk about it enough because, again, like you said, we know the fierceness. We know the vitriol on that day. But again, most of the time it's your neighbor that you got to look at the next day when you're going to take the trash out. And it's just such a beautiful rivalry. But like I said, man, I really appreciate you joining us. I know our audience, regardless of what team you root for, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, doesn't matter. This is the type of stuff we want to give out coming from a guy that did it, that was in that pocket, that took those hits, that made those throws and understands the difference, especially in the fourth quarter. John Parker Wilson, I really appreciate you coming on, brother. We got to do this again soon, man. It was fantastic. I knew it was going to be. I appreciate you guys watching at home, whether it's on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Vimeo, wherever. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show, and Jboy's going like John Parker in the pocket. The ball's gone. The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, technical director Dave Hammock, creative director David Culbertson, audio engineer Feyzan, production assistant Kyle Orr, and our executive producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, and of course we film at Melt Sports in Atlanta, GA. So come check us out.